The Batman Universe Comic Podcast. Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
Hi, this is Denny O'Neil.
My name is Neil Adams.
This is Paul Dini.
Hi, my name's Dan DiDio.
This is Kevin Conroy.
Hey, this is Francis Maniple.
Hi, this is Jim Lee, and you're listening to the Batman Universe Comic Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Batman Universe Comic Podcast, episode number 243. I am your host, Dustin, and today I have with me...
This is Ed.
And this is Nora Wexley.
And we are bringing the latest comic news and comic book reviews from the weeks of February 18th through March 3rd. We have a total of 2 books to cover in depth. We have a bunch of news, including solicitations and sales numbers to cover. And then, obviously, we have Greater Gotham and some listener Q&As later on. So let's jump straight into the news. So sales came out for the month of January. We're a little bit behind on talking about this, but because as you're listening to this, sales numbers for the month of February will be right around the corner. But as expected, Doomsday Clock took the number 1 slot yet again. Dark Knight's Metal took the number 2 slot. Batman, both issues of Batman took number 3 and 4 slots, so I think DC is sitting pretty high on those sales charts. I also believe, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong because I remember looking at this weeks ago when the numbers came out, but I believe January was one of the first times in a while that DC actually overthrew Marvel and took over the market share-ish as far as the number of issues sold. Not dollar count, I don't think yet, but as far as the units sold, I believe DC overthrew Marvel when it came to units sold. So that is something I guess DC is proud of. Looking over the Bat books, there's not a whole lot of changes between a lot of the books. We're kind of at a standstill with a lot of the books. They're not really changing. I mean, the biggest change that I noticed, Batwoman dropped a 10% drop from the last issue in December to this issue, but that only actually translated to about 1,700 issues. It's a 10% drop because it is so far down on the issues that actually sell. Batgirl dropped 7%, and Batgirl and the Birds of Prey dropped 9% as well. So it is entirely possible, as we are going to talk about at least one of those 3 books in a minute here, that changes are going to be coming to a lot of books, and some of those books could be getting new creative teams. As far as the greater DC stuff, Dark Knight's Metal only dropped about 2% from the previous issue with issue number 5. Doomsday Clock dropped a whole 0.5%, which means that it's going to be pretty consistent, probably sitting around that 150K range per issue. It just sucks now that the issues are going to be coming out every other month at this point. So outside of that, Justice League and Justice League of America both staying pretty steady where they've been at for a while. Same thing with Suicide Squad. Teen Titans saw a significant drop, but that was partially due because Teen Titans the previous month was in the midst of the Super Sons of Tomorrow crossover, so it was involved in that, so that's probably why it had such a humongous drop from month to month. But outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot of differences. I mean, quite honestly, the vast majority of books had less than 1,000 issues variation between December and January, so that's always a good thing. So that is sales numbers.
Our Batman books, though.
That's true. That is
Batman, Batman White Knight, Batman the Signal, Dark Knight's Metal. That means 50% of the top 10 are all Batman books. That's staggering.
If you count Doomsday Clock, there's 6 of them, so lots of stuff. And then Detective Comics added those 2 to the top 15. So out of the top 15 books for the month, you actually had a total of 8 of the top 15 were DC/Batman titles that we cover on the website. So pretty big numbers there. All right, so if you want detailed numbers and you would like to know which books are considered in danger, head over to the website for all the sales charts related to the overall market and the individual areas, including the Batman books, the Greater Gotham books, and the Greater DC books. Jessica puts in an analysis of all of those specific sections, so you can check those out over on the site. The numbers normally post from Comic-Con, which is the website we use to get the numbers for our analysis. They normally post up the second Monday of the month, and then our analysis is shortly thereafter, so be looking for that. Next up, if you were paying attention to any of the news that we had over on the website related to Toy Fair, you may have heard about a new black and white statue. I know this is not comic related, but I'm getting there, I promise. There was a statue that was announced from DC Collectibles, part of their Batman Black and White collection. There's a Joker and a Batman. Both are based off of a design done by Gerard Way, who many people may know as the man behind the Umbrella Academy, or maybe a lot of people know him behind My Chemical Romance, or a lot of people might know him from Young Animal line. He's pretty much all over the place. But the point is, he's done a lot of successful projects. Well, it turns out he actually had a unpublished Batman project that he was working on way back. I want to say it was like 2008 is when he first came up with the concept for this, and it was called Kingdom of the Mad. And Jessica put together an article basically talking about this project. It's very much a Elseworlds type story. Batman is actually committed inside of Arkham Asylum.
Finally.
Has a map of Gotham City. It's scrolled into his cape, which actually consists of a massive drawing of a magical kingdom. And then Joker is also in there. There's concepts for a number of other characters as well, including Robin, Riddler, and Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze, interestingly enough, I thought this was kind of cool. His exoskeleton suit made of metal is actually made from the car that his wife died in. He took the metal from the car and made it into a suit of armor. I strongly suggest that if you are interested in just wild and crazy ideas, you check this out. It's pretty cool. But basically, it's a project that Way was creating back in 2008. Dan DiDio and Ian Sattler at the time were all on board for him to do this. Back in 2013, he gave an interview talking about it and said that his life took a different turn and he couldn't end up finishing the project. But the concept art that he had created for the series, they have turned into 2 statues for DC Collectibles. And I will say, out of all the stuff that we posted regarding stuff announced from Toy Fair right before Toy Fair, that was one of the ones that was getting a lot of interest. So if you are interested in seeing a project that may never even see the light of day, definitely head over to the site and check it out.
This is the one for you.
Yeah. All right, so then on February 20th, it was announced that Nightwing is going to be getting a new creative team. Benjamin Percy is going to be taking over. Benjamin Percy, who's coming over from Green Arrow. He recently left Green Arrow. He was still on Teen Titans as of the last issue that was solicited for Teen Titans. But he's coming over to Nightwing. Nightwing is going to be changing from every 2 weeks to a monthly title. This is going to start in May. This is actually the artist that's going to be joining him is Christopher Mooneyham, and it looks like his style of art has a hint of cyberpunk. The specific synopsis says, in this arc, change is on the horizon when the nuke technologist sets his sights on Bloodhaven, creating a holographic, interconnected city where everyone is an individual or part of a larger network. It's the internet made physical. Gentrification on a gigabyte-laced steroids, but when this new utopia encroaches on his turf, Nightwing starts to uncover a sinister plot based on not on revenge, but on a reckoning. So this is going to kick off a new direction with the title. It's still going to have Nightwing in Bloodhaven, so that's not changing. There was some talk about doing some different stuff that's more technology stuff, Benjamin Percy had said. But this is actually, as we know, the second creator change in the last year. Previously, in December, Tim Seeley came off the title, and then Sam Humphries came on. And at the time, they actually made a pretty big deal about Sam Humphries coming over to the title. But as we know, April solicited the 2 issues that were coming out for Nightwing in that month, and he was not anywhere on those for whatever reason. We didn't hear anything about it. Turns out him and Bernard Chang were only, I guess, attached for 1 arc, similar to the situation we're seeing on Justice League. Christopher Priest only on for basically 1 arc as a stopgap situation until the new direction comes up in May or June in the case of Justice League. So, Nightwing, new creative team, that's what's coming.
It needs it. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, so then solicitations came out the next day on February 21st. There is a bunch of different stuff that happened, so I'm going to try to blow through some of this because there's a lot to talk about here. I'll break up some of the stuff. So some of the story elements that's happening in some of the book. Booster Gold's time-traveling antics continue to cause headaches for Batman and Catwoman's wedding plans in the pages of Batman number 46 and number 47, the second and third parts of the storyline The Travelers. Over in the pages of Detective Comics, James Tynion IV wraps up his run on the series with issues number 980 through 981 in the finale of the Batman Eternal storyline, which sees Spoiler and Cassandra Cain discovering the key to protecting Gotham from a dark future and the rest of the team making one last stand against the common foe. Over in Batman Beyond number 20, we may see the Robin of the future in the form of Terry's brother Matt, assuming that he survives his training. So then that's what we got as far as stories. As far as some of the other stuff that we've got coming, May also sees the advanced solicitation of the conclusion of The Dark Prince Charming, which will come out in the middle of June. We will also see the final issue of Batman White Knight. Then we'll see instead of Harley Quinn's main series coming out, there's a 2-issue mini-series called Harley Quinn, Harley Loves Joker, which will release both issues of the mini-series in May, while the monthly comic is completely absent from the solicitations, presumably because Harley Quinn's being rolled into whatever Scott Snyder's doing with Justice League No Justice. Releasing weekly during the month will be Justice League No Justice, which spins out of the pages of Dark Knight's Metal and features the powerhouse team of Scott Snyder, James Tynion IV, and Joshua Williamson. This is probably why the Justice League series, Justice League of America, Titans, and Teen Titans do not have any issues solicited for that month at all. Also, series coming to an end in May include Batgirl and the Birds of Prey, which will wrap up with issue number 22, answering the question, who is Oracle? Meanwhile, Super Sons ends with number 16 and the pint-sized heroes picking up the pieces of the Amazo project. Also, the final arc begins in Bombshells United as DC announced the series will come to an end in the coming months. We already talked about the creative change over in Nightwing. And then finally, as we talked about last issue, DC Nation number 0, which will cost $1 if you buy it in store, or if you get it digitally, it's free, will tell the prelude to the wedding of Batman and Catwoman, which will be, and then also we'll talk about No Justice and have Brian Michael Bendis' stuff related to Superman as well. So if you want full details on DC Nation number 0, there is an article on the site dealing all about that. We also talked about that last episode, so there's that. So let's talk about some of these series that are changing and ending and things like that. So let's first talk about Detective Comics. Obviously, we cover Detective Comics in depth every single episode, and we've been talking about how Tynion had said he wanted to get all the way to issue number 1000. Clearly, that's not happening. His last issue is going to be number 981, leaving 19 issues remaining. We don't obviously know at this point who the new creative team is going to be on Detective Comics, nor do we know whether or not Detective Comics will go monthly or stay twice per month. But the question is, do you think that Tynion was removed from the book because of sales? I mean, sales aren't horrible by any means, but they're not nearly as good as Batman. I think that's part of the concern for them. But then again, it still is in the top 15, so it's not like it's doing bad in any way, shape, or form. So I guess my question to you guys is, should Tynion have come off the issue, or do you feel like it was time for him to move on, or do you think he was actually removed?
I'm really not sure, to be honest with you. I mean, sales are okay, and Detectives never historically sold as much as Batman. You know what I mean? Like, there's some arcs over the years that have outsold Batman, but look at the entire New 52. Yet you could say that's a Snyder thing, but even before that, Batman's always outsold Detective, which is kind of weird that you'd be a Batman fan and not bother to read Detective. But besides the point, about 30,000 people a month do that, by the way. Read
Sure.
Batman and don't read Detective, which is kind of strange, but I don't know. Removed, the sales were okay. The storylines have been good. There's been a couple moments I wasn't in love with, but overall, he's been very, very good on the book. And I don't think, have we heard where he's going next? Has he got an assignment that we're aware of?
Nothing that's been announced yet, but I'm just assuming at this point that it has something to do with whatever Scott Snyder is doing next. We know that Justice League is going to be taken over by Scott Snyder come June, and we know that Justice League of America, Teen Titans, and Titans, Snyder has said on Twitter that those books will tie into whatever's happening in Justice League. So I'm guessing that he could be attached to one of those titles. But nothing's been announced at this point, although announcements are right around the corner because Snyder has been hinting that stuff is going to be announced very soon. Emerald City Comic Con was this past weekend, and nothing related to the main series or main DC Universe titles was announced. But then again, there's more conventions. WonderCon's right around the corner. C2E2's right around the corner. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up real soon here. And then obviously we've got solicitations coming up basically in 2 weeks. So it's not like there's not going to be some sort of announcement between now and then with whatever's happening. I guarantee you before this podcast comes out, we'll hear something about something. For
me, it'd be hard to believe that he wanted to make it to 1,000 and would quit, especially if they stay doing bi-monthly, 19 issues away. So I'm assuming they removed him, or whatever Snyder's cooking up was too good to be true, but I don't see any reason why he would have got fired from the book. I can't think of anything. Sales are fine. Stories are okay. I don't know.
I think that there's just a massive creative shakeup happening right now because of, and honestly, I think there's two distinct reasons for this. You got Dark Knight's Metal ending, and they want that series to have an effect on the books going forward, whether it's a direct effect or whether it just be, changes amongst some of the teams and things like that. I believe that because that series is ending, they want some of the books, and it makes sense to actually have the team books, Titans, Teen Titans, Justice League of America, get a shakeup, because those titles, they're not selling horribly by any means, but they're not selling crazily well either. So by giving those books the ability to kind of all get tied to something that Snyder's doing, normally what Snyder works on, it does sell really well. So I'm guessing that if they can tie stuff together with what's going on with whatever Scott Snyder does with Justice League, then the idea is that they can have some new directions with some of this stuff. Now, the question that I'm left with, knowing that Tynion is coming off the book, and I'm sure he will be doing one of those other series, we don't know if Justice League is going to still come out twice per month, based off of the fact that the Superman titles are switching over to once a month in July, when Brian Michael Bendis takes over those issues, or those series, I should say. But the other part of it is, it feels like the only book that consistently does extremely well with having 2 issues per month is Batman. And I'm not saying that if their goal is to get everything back to being monthly, that they should leave Batman, but I don't see them changing Batman, because if they can consistently sell 100K or very close to 100K issues per issue for Batman, I doubt they're going to slash Batman and say, you know what, we're just going to do 1 a month and we're going to take 100,000 issues that we're already selling and just stop selling them. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But the same thing could be said about Detective Comics, because it's on average selling between about 50,000 issues per issue. So the thing is, to make that go monthly wouldn't make a lot of sense, because then you're taking 50,000 issues off the table there. I don't know how Action Comics was doing and Superman were doing in comparison to some of these other titles, to know whether or not they specifically, if it was more of a creative reasoning as to why they went monthly, or if it did have to do a lot with the sales. But there's a lot of other series like Suicide Squad. I still don't understand why that's still on. They've had so many issues with artists on the book where they've had so many issues, and that goes back from the very beginning when it launched. Jim Lee was originally on it, but he was on it for like an issue and a half. They've had issues with that book with getting artists, I don't know. But if there was one team book I'd really like to see a change on, it would be specifically Suicide Squad. The other ones, I see what they're doing. I don't have any major issues with it. I mean, I know that the art situation is a big deal when it comes to these issues that are monthly or twice per month. But I really feel like Suicide Squad has been one of the ones that has been suffering horribly, and that series is actually further down on the sales charts than most of the other series. I think the only series that's actually lower than Suicide Squad is Justice League of America, but it's not by a whole lot. We're talking like a difference of like 100 issues. So, and this is going off of January's numbers. But my point is, do I believe that he got pulled off? No, I think what ended up happening was they offered him something like maybe Justice League of America or Teen Titans or Titans or something like that. Although I can't honestly see him taking Titans or Teen Titans. I could see him doing maybe Justice League of America, because he'll be able to use maybe a little bit more characters. It feels like if he went from Detective Comics to Titans or Teen Titans, it would kind of be a step down Although at this point, Justice League of America, as well as Justice League, is actually a step down. I mean, obviously Justice League is going to be Snyder, so that's going to go up in sales. But it's interesting to see what's going to happen. I mean, the thing is, if he actually intended to go to issue 1000, I can't wait till he can actually talk about whether or not he wanted to keep going, or if this was just a time where he thought, well, I could keep going, but I'd rather work on something different, and they offered me something different. I'd love to hear that somewhere down the line. That being said, what I honestly believe is going to end up happening with Detective Comics is that Patrick Gleason and Peter Tomasi are going to be on Detective Comics, and I don't think it's actually going to go monthly. I think it's going to stay twice a month, and then you're going to see maybe longer arcs similar to the way that Titan has been doing it with more regular artists. But I feel like Peter Tomasi is probably going to be the writer who's going to be taking that over, especially since, well, one, he's been working on DC stuff forever, and he's no longer working on the Superman stuff, so he's got a giant opening, and Super Sons also ended, so he's got a massive opening in his schedule where he could probably do something like Detective Comics. And honestly, at this point, unless it's something out of left field, I can't see it being somebody else.
Nobody in the world can have a problem with Tomasi. Like, that would be fantastic.
Agreed. So some of these other ones, let's talk about Batgirl and the Birds of Prey. That's another one that was announced very abruptly. Now, some of these series, it was very interesting the way they announced that these things were changing. Titan has actually been absent from Twitter. He got off of Twitter as of New Year's. He gave up Twitter, and he's been just on, I guess, Instagram. I don't really follow anybody on Instagram, so I don't know, but I remember him saying that he was going to be off of Twitter after the new year. He reappeared after this announcement that he was going to be heading off Detective Comics, and he basically said, yes, I am heading off, but I do have plans. I have other issues, or I am going to be on another series. It's just not announced yet. And he said come May, when his final issues of Detective Comics, he would probably do some interviews and things like that. Now, Batgirl and the Birds of Prey was a little bit more abrupt because the series is just completely ending. Conveniently, the story arc just wraps up in a nice, I guess, perfect bow timing-wise for this to happen. And DC just randomly tweeted out a retweet from the Bensons, basically thanking their fans and saying that they're leaving the title and that they're not leaving DC Comics. They're going to be going to some other series. They plugged the fact that they're going to be doing Green Arrow Annual in May, but they're going to be on some other title come June or July. Sometime in the summer, they're going to be on some other title. But there was like basically nothing. Batgirl and the Birds of Prey is done. So I'm sure Stella has something to say about this. So let's hear what you got.
Yeah. Oh man, what disheartening news, quite honestly. And I understand that, you know, the numbers perhaps weren't always there, but I feel like consistently, it was a pretty consistently good book. And so I'm sorry to hear that they are no longer going to be carrying on with it, but I'm glad to hear that they're on some sort of title, whatever that may be. The question really remains, though, should DC exist, I guess, without a Birds of Prey book, because I think it's one of those that carries a lot of weight with it, having this mostly all-female team. It depends on how the roster changes. And also, how does the universe go about without having Oracle? And understandably, Oracle is not as important as she was pre-Flashpoint, but we're just getting her feet back in there, and so I was hoping that perhaps something more would come of it. Whew, man. I mean, the solicit says we're rounding back to the Who is Oracle. So I don't know if maybe this is a bit of a feint, and we're going to scrap the Batgirl and the Birds of Prey title, and we're just going to have a Birds of Prey title now, and maybe Barbara Gordon is Oracle full-time, and we have a roster change because something's up with Huntress, most likely involving her mother. And also in July, when we interviewed the Bensons, they were talking about, you know, maybe bringing Cassandra on the team. Like, they had plans for that potentially, or other members, and obviously we're not seeing that right now. So I'm almost wondering if they're getting rid of this particular title, but coming back with another Birds of Prey, more general and less specific with Batgirl. Barbara Gordon takes a different role, and we have a new roster coming on with it. I just wonder, again, you know, what is the role of Birds of Prey in the DC universe? I think it's pretty important. I think a void would absolutely be felt. without having that particular book because we don't have many female-led DC comic titles. It's overwhelmingly male, so having that there. And it was one of the books with Batgirl that had its feet more in continuity because as we know, or maybe you guys don't know, but as many people know who listen to my show, Hope Larson doesn't necessarily keep to continuity. There are sort of some questions and things don't really with other stuff that's happening, but the Benson sisters tried to, and you could certainly see that effort, keep within the Batman continuity. So it's sad. I'm really hoping that it's just a feint, as I say, and it'll come back because I think there's an importance for having Birds of Prey. I mean, if you think about it, Birds of Prey has been in practically every era of DCU, starting in the 90s. There's a reason why I kept rebooting and starting over again. So I'm really hopeful. But I guess Josh on Twitter said something about a Poison Ivy series. Like maybe they'll come back and do that. I wasn't aware of a Poison Ivy series. But they need to do something because they're great writers and they bring their fans first, I think, and then writers second. And they really bring that passion to whatever they're writing. And I think that's why a lot of readers hooked onto them because you can really tell when the person writing the character is in love with the character and loves them as much as possible, as you do. So those are my thoughts.
I'd rather have a Birds of Prey book than a Suicide book at this point.
Suicide Squad? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the Birds of Prey book is better.
Yeah. So here's my quick take on this. So I believe that I agree. I believe that the book is going to go away, potentially rebooted. I don't know that the Bensons are going to be the ones who come back on the series or if they're going to do something different. I definitely do agree with your statement, Stella, about the Bensons are fans first, because they definitely, you can see in the stuff that they've written that it's like they're in a minefield and they're trying to basically make their way through all of this stuff that had happened during the New 52, but try to get us back to the other side of normal continuity pre-Flashpoint. And it feels like they've been making steps towards trying to just basically reestablish things, but not mess with what already existed during the New 52 as well. And it felt like getting to a point where they could get back to that continuity that was pre-Flashpoint, but not negate all the stuff that happened during the New 52. And I think they're one of the few creative teams that did a really good job. I think James Tynion has actually done a really good job over in Detective Comics too, doing something very similar, making the New 52 stuff there, but still making sure that we harken back to the original continuity of these characters. I believe that Birds of Prey is going to come back, and I feel like Batgirl is going to undergo a major change, and I feel as if the character of Barbara Gordon is going to revert back to that Oracle status. I'm not saying she has to be in the wheelchair. I'm not saying that she has to never be able to go out on patrol, but I feel like her character should be basically that female-driven, matriarchal character for not just the Batman universe, but the entire DC universe. If you've been listening to Stella's show over the years, you know that she doesn't just have ties to the Batman universe.
No.
She also has a lot of ties to the DC universe as well. So the thing is, like, that is really missing. There isn't really anybody out there, especially in that role of somebody like Oracle out there for the DC universe. So I would love to see Barbara go back to being Oracle. Batgirl and Birds of Prey just go to Birds of Prey and maybe, yes, have a little bit of a team change. I'm not saying that some of these characters don't belong on the team, but I think that the way that Green Arrow has been going for a while now, Black Canary has been a very main character. During the New 52, she wasn't a main character, but she has very much been a main character in the pages of Green Arrow since the beginning of Rebirth. And I believe that maybe now's the time for Black Canary to maybe not be on the team for a while and maybe have a team that's a little bit different. Maybe still include Huntress, because Huntress doesn't have anywhere else to go at this point. Maybe include somebody like Spoiler, Cassandra, even Harper Row to a degree. I mean,
Yes!
she doesn't necessarily have to be going out because we know she isn't Bluebird right now, but have her involved in the team in some way, even if it's just like not in vigilante, costume situations, but just dealing with the characters and the personal relationships of the characters outside of their costumes. So I think that could be a really interesting way to go. You have Huntress as, I guess, more of the vet amongst the team outside of Batgirl herself, but Batgirl kind of takes these younger female characters under her wing and kind of trains them to be better, and still can be not completely, but distant from Batman, to the point where, you know, we're seeing a situation where, spoiler, for example, is it doesn't want to be with Batman or around Batman in the pages of Detective Comics. Having her go off with Batgirl could be the time, you know, the situation that could be needed for that character. And the same thing goes for Harper Row. And I don't know how you get to the Cassandra Cain situation, but that could happen very easily in the next couple months. That being said, that's what I'd like to happen. I mean, I've said before that I would have loved to seen Tim Drake have a team with Spoiler and Cassandra and Harper, because I think that would be interesting. But I think that Batgirl works perfectly when we talk about Detective Comics, the issue that we're going to talk about here. The way Batgirl is written is very well done and treats her more of a equal and not just a sidekick or somebody with the bat symbol on her chest, as shown in the actual pages of Batgirl. Not that she's a sidekick in the pages of Batgirl, but she just feels like she's lost right now. And I feel like she needs a definitive direction, and I think the direction that the Bensons have been leaning towards in Birds of Prey is the direction that the character needs to go. You can still have her go on patrol occasionally, so that way you can still have merchandise for her, because we know DC is all about that merchandise. So the thing is, if you know, she's not going to be re-paralyzed by any means, but just have her where she's more of like the leader of a team, and she knows that her role is better suited back planning, strategizing, using the technology and things like that to her advantage, and having the other people on the team go out and do the missions. I think that would make everything smoother, in my opinion. So
it seems like it might be a Batgirl Barbara Gordon shakeup overall, because even in Hope Larson's book, there's something weird happening where Barbara Gordon, you know, for the third time is saying, "I've grown up." You know, how many times can you turn over a new leaf? So I'll wait until it actually happens. But it seems like maybe something is happening overall with that character, and perhaps Hope Larson was told to do something along with the Bensons, and they might come into order. So that might go towards it might be proof for what you are saying.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that maybe we're going to bring another person in to be Batgirl if she goes Oracle first time? Stephanie or Cass? To actually take the mantle of Batgirl? Would you want to see them put Barbara on the shelf and become Oracle, and she starts training up a new version of Batgirl with Cass or Steph?
I don't think they need to do that right away. I mean, I think that ultimately, let's just establish the team, establish the new direction for Barbara. If they go the route of having somebody else in the role of Batgirl, I don't think they need to rush into it and do it right away. I mean, I'm not opposed to them doing that, because I don't think it's not necessarily something that couldn't happen, but I don't think that it needs to be something that happens right away. I mean, that's something that could happen down the line. Batgirl Barbara Gordon could still go out on patrol in her uniform, still go out with the other, you know, amongst the rest of the team, but eventually maybe she just decides that she is better suited in, you know, inside Clock Tower or whatever, and she's better suited as just the leader behind the scenes and puts the team out there by themselves, and then maybe they go the route of having another Batgirl. At this point, I don't know that it's necessary to have somebody else take the role of Batgirl at this point, but I'm not going to say I would be opposed to it happening down the line. I just don't think that they should go that route now.
Yeah, and I mean, but there is a shakeup coming, I think, in Detective. I feel like after this dramatic trial of Batwoman, and that maybe Cassandra's going to feel like she doesn't belong on that particular team. But I fully endorse this idea of starting to create a legacy of Birds of Prey, especially with the younger characters. It's certainly something that I've wanted to see before, and it's something they've done before with Proxy, a.k.a. Wendy
Harris.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say Harrison. I'm like, that's not right. So it's open for, there's so many good possibilities here. You know, we just spent a long time debating it and talking about it, and I hope that nothing happens. That would be terrible. So I'm really hoping that something happens, and I think there are lots of good possibilities here.
And the other thing to keep in mind is Batgirl is not announced to be ending, but the storyline that they're currently working on the solicitation does read in May that the arc that they're currently doing is the finale. So June might come along and there might be a new creative team announced on the series as well. I mean, like, if the series doesn't end, they don't have to announce that there's a new creative team until right before solicitations come out, and maybe Batgirl, the series, has a creative team attached for just a short arc or something like that, and then just is like the transition to what they do with Birds of Prey, and then Batgirl ends, but Birds of Prey starts, and maybe that's the route they're going, and that's why Batgirl's still happening, even though Birds of Prey is ending at this point. So there's a lot of different ways that this could happen. Anyway, so the other series that was announced that's going to be ending, outside of Bombshells United, because we don't really talk about that much here, the other major series that we do talk about, though, is Super Sons, which is one of the few books that features Damian. This one features Damian and John Kent, a Superboy. I've enjoyed the series. I mean, I think it was a lot better in the beginning. I think some of the focus was missed out more recently. I think it's been trying to deal with some of the other events that are happening or spawning out of some of the other books, like with the Super Sons of Tomorrow. It wasn't horrible, but it felt like a weird situation to involve that future Tim that just popped up in Detective Comics. But overall, the series, I think, has been good, and it paints Damian in a unique way because it contrasts him to John Kent, Superboy, who is basically the Clark Kent to Bruce Wayne's Batman, and it's a very interesting version, a relationship between the two characters, because it's just like a Batman-Superman book that focuses on their relationship in and out of the costume, and we don't see that very much nowadays, because most of the time when you see those stories, they are in costume, or they are fighting some sort of battle, or they have some sort of mission or something like that. So it's a shame that it's ending, but again, this was one of the other ones that it was weird because the actual solicitations were released and it didn't say it was the final issue. Then it was leaked that the Previews magazine was actually going to announce that it was a final issue, and then strangely the day after, Peter Tomasi went on Twitter and said, yes, it is in fact the final issue. We do have plans for these characters after this, but it is the final issue at this point. And I feel like, again, this is another one of those series that's just, it's the fallout between what's happening with Brian Michael Bendis with the Superman titles and the stuff that's happening with the Justice League titles. Not that this is a Justice League title by any means, but I think this is more of an effect of what's happening with the Superman titles, and that's why this series is ending. So it's unfortunate that it is. I'm interested to see what happens. If you asked me 6 years ago if I was pissed about a Damian book being canceled, I probably would have said no. But I think that, again, Peter Tomasi has done a really great job making Damian a more likable character, but still a very smart aleck character who can get on your nerves. And I think that is a character that can be around. You know what I would love to see? Damian with Jason Todd. That would be a funny relationship.
I think that if Tomasi takes over Detective, Damian might be coming along with him.
That's true.
Because this whole current cast of characters that Tynion put together is his idea. I mean, if he leaves the book and Tomasi takes over, I very much doubt he's going to have the Azrael, Batwing, Batwoman. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could see a lot of things changing, honestly. I could see Azrael and Batwing heading over and being part of the Batwoman series. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I feel like, especially the way everything's going to Detective Comics, it feels as if they're going in a new direction where Batwing and Azrael are going to side with Kate in this entire situation, and there's absolutely no reason they can't be supporting characters for Kate. I really need the Batwoman series to get on board with everything else that's going on, because it feels like the Batwoman story that's being told in Detective Comics is much more compelling and interesting than what's actually being told in her own series. And not that what's happening in her own series isn't okay, but quite honestly, I feel like we've spent so much time dealing with such little amount of character in the present that I really want there to be some sort of new direction for that series. So if to have Batwing and Azrael end up in that, along with Julia Pennyworth, who has barely showed up in the series, even though she was supposed to be one of the main characters or main supporting characters in the series when it launched. She's barely been in the series at all. You know, you could create a new little team within that, but still have it Batwoman's title, still have it focus on Batwoman. But then meanwhile, over in Detective Comics, you keep somebody like Tim Drake, add Damian to the mix. You could have Cassandra. I mean, it just depends on what they end up doing with Birds of Prey. But you could have a more focused story where maybe it's just Damian, Tim, Batman, and I don't know, maybe throw one other person in the mix, and that's the team, and it's just a small, more focused team for the time being, where it doesn't need to be a massive team like the Gotham Knights were. So, I mean, there's tons of different directions that they could go, and a lot of it hinges on who goes where and what they're going to do. I mean, obviously, Detective could turn from a team-type book to going back to days of just a detective-type stories or just singular Batman stories, which I honestly don't want to see. I mean, I like detective stories and all of that, but I feel like Tynion has done such a good job of showing that you can use all these different characters within the Bat family in the series that there's absolutely no reason you shouldn't use these characters to your advantage. There's no reason that you can't change up the characters, as Tynion has shown that you can focus on different characters and things like that. But I think it would be a real waste of page just to tell yet another just Batman story as Batman as a singular character.
I would just like, and just kind of, this is not me skipping ahead to Detective, I would like to see the group we saw in Detective star in Detective, which is the proper Bat family. Nightwing, Damian, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, you know what I'm saying? Throw Stephanie in there. I would just like to see him do like the classic Bat family. Barbara, you know what I mean? I'd like to see stories with them for like a year or so. I could totally do a year of that.
Well, I would love to see that, but the one way I would love to see that happen is if you focused on those other characters being wherever they are. So if Barbara, like honestly, I feel like Barbara probably just needs to leave Burnside. It's just my opinion. I think that has run its course. So she comes back to just main Gotham City. She can be more involved in things and things like that. But I feel like with Nightwing in Bloodhaven, you keep Nightwing in Bloodhaven, and he only comes in town when they need backup or when they need, more bodies.
Let's have Batman and Red Hood go to Bloodhaven first.
Yeah, because the other part of it is like Red Hood and the Outlaws. Not that, like we've said multiple times, that it's much better than it was, but the Bizarro stuff that they've been doing has taken way longer than it probably should have. So there's definitely a new direction that they could do with Red Hood. Involving him with the main Bat family would be something very different, because we have yet to see him actually involved in the main Bat family full-time for a long period of time, other than just like a story arc or something. Having Damian interact with Jason and Tim and having that kind of interaction, one, Peter Tomasi would be the perfect person to do that, but two, I feel like there's certain characters that I feel like they could do so much more with by including them in the Bat family than having them on the outskirts of the family, like Red Hood, Batgirl, things like that. All right, so that is all the solicitations. If you want the full list of everything that's coming out in May, which there's a lot less than normal, but there is a bunch of stuff coming out, check out the list over on the website for full details for that. The last bit of news we have comes on February 26th. There was some more details, including the planned release dates for some of the upcoming DC and DC Zoom titles. I'm just going to roll through the titles and the actual month and year release dates that they're coming. If you want the full details on what is actually planned to happen in each one of these, I strongly suggest you head over to the website. We spent a lot of time talking about solicitations, and I do want to get to listener Q&As. So we got DC Superhero Girl Search for Atlantis, which is coming in October 2018. Super Sons is coming April 2019. Black Canary Ignite is coming May 2019. Dear Justice League, May 2019. Batman Tales Once Upon a Time, July 2019. Batman Overdrive, August 2019. Harley Quinn Breaking Glass, which we're moving into the DC Zoom titles. That's coming in September 2018. Under the Moon, A Catwoman Tale, February 2019. Gotham High, August 2019. Batman Nightwalker, November 2019. And then Teen Titans Raven, which the reason we're including this in the list is because the actual release details said that this was going to be the first of a series of 6 titles. Each title is going to focus on an individual member of the team of the Teen Titans, and then the last book will have the team coming together. We have not had any information about whether or not Robin will be amongst the team, but we are assuming he will be, regardless of which one. We did reach out to the author, and she declined to tell us which characters she was actually going to be focusing on, but it is what it is. But anyway, so also if you're interested in knowing what some of these, I know when Stella and I were talking about this the last episode, we were talking about some of the writers that are attached to these series, what they have previously worked on, and Stella had mentioned it would be great if they were attached to previously successful young adult series, and I said yes, that was the case, but I was unaware of which ones they were. The stuff that we posted up on the site actually says the artist's name and what they are best known for, and when I was listing off, my wife reads some young adult stuff, not a ton, but I ran through the list of the stuff that some of these people have been attached to, and she actually knew some of them, and she is not a young adult, so I'm guessing if somebody who reads young adult stuff, who's an adult, knows at least some of this stuff, it is coming from some people who are pretty popular in that area of writing. So head over to the site, check out the list, there's tons of details, also what you can expect from each individual series as well, so definitely check that out. With that is all of our news. We're going to dive straight into our comic book reviews, and the first one we've got is Batman.
Oh, Batman number 41. Everyone Loves Ivy Part 1. Or as I like to call it, Bruce Wayne hitting Alfred in the face! That's what I call it. Script Tom King. Art and cover Mikhail Janin. Color, June Chung. Whoo boy, okay. So, Batman, he awakes from an odd dream. And he comes running down and sort of, trying to think of like the best word, but clearly he's not feeling well. And he punches Alfred to get him to get out of his way, and it seems like that was a little hasty. Alfred wasn't doing anything. But he is actually running down to the Batcave in order to get an antidote. Meanwhile, as all this is happening, there's a voiceover in green boxes, and we can only assume that it's Poison Ivy because there is a page of her, Poison Ivy. And she's basically, she's taken over the world, as it were. Selina wakes up and goes down to the cave, and she's acting a little sexually aggressive, if you will. Even more so than normal. And she's about to go in for the kill, and Bruce gives her a dose of the antidote. So now they're all antidoted up, and we see a splash page, I suppose like 2 splash pages of all sorts of people, both famous, non-famous, superhero. Oh, I just realized that Donald J., the back of his head is on there. Superhero or villain. They're all saying that they love Ivy because, of course, she loves them. So suddenly, Batman and Selina wake up in their costumes, which is something that always creeps me out, quite honestly. And Alfred is there at the bottom of their bed, and he is talking in a possessed mode. He's possessed by Ivy, or at least channeling her. Batman's about to punch Alfred again, but Flash runs just in the nick of time and is able to prevent the punch from connecting, but Flash gets punched again. So even though that they've been given an antidote, it's only going to work for so long. And Ivy has everything she needs, really. She's got every person holding a gun, every army waiting for orders, every man with a missile, everyone with a bomb. So she is absolutely in control of everything. She controls them as she controls the green, as she says. So she doesn't want anything, even though, everyone, they probably want something. But she has everything that she absolutely wants, so it's really hard to answer that question, I suppose. Batman says that she doesn't have him, and Catwoman says that she'll never have her. And she retorts that now that she has Alfred and Cyborg, she's got all sorts of knowledge, which is perhaps the best power that you can have. And she appreciated the lengths that he went to get that particular antidote, because he had some rare things in there. And she says that she's going to make the world better. And for once, we have a Batman who doesn't know what to do, which, doesn't happen very often. So basically, Catwoman and Batman, I mean, this is, I guess, their ultimate team up here because it's literally them against the world. And that is Everyone Loves Ivy. Okay, the most important question, of course, is how'd you feel when Bruce hit Alfred?
The question is, why does he keep hitting Alfred? And I'm pretty sure the reason he's hitting Alfred, well, okay, I can't say I thought of this. This was something that was brought up on Twitter, and I thought it's probably worth noting. Somebody asked Tom King, why does Bruce keep hitting Alfred? And he says, well, remember, Bruce is a detective first and foremost. So when he hits Alfred, what is he learning from hitting Alfred?
That he's old. Quit hitting old people, dude.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's part of it, but I mean, I think there's some sort of difference between the two hits, although I couldn't figure it out in the actual pages. But I mean, what do I feel about it? I mean, I feel like he knows that there's something not right, so there's a reason he's doing it. Honestly, if this all comes down to everybody was under the control and Bruce is actually hitting Alfred in the face and Alfred wakes up with a massive headache because he got punched in the face too many times, I would expect Bruce to feel bad about it, but if it helped save the world, then I guess Alfred's not going to sit there and be like, why'd you keep hitting me in the face? So
I think that the amount of violence in the past year that has been perpetrated on poor Alfred is out of control. I mean, ever since the New 52, he's become everyone's punching bag. And I think that we should stop having scenes where Bruce either beats Alfred, emotionally tortures Alfred, or ends up, getting one of his limbs chopped off. So if we could just maybe leave the old man alone for a year without somebody giving him a beating, that'd be okay with me.
Yes, I was caught off guard the first time. The second time made more sense. But the first time, it doesn't seem like anything's amiss. Even the typeface, of course, because it's not green. But, inquiring where his clothes are, all of these things, and just bam! But I guess he assumes that Ivy has already sort of penetrated every area of the human race, so of course Alfred is there. But I thought that was interesting. It almost reminded me of Scott Snyder, because we all remember there's sort of this conspiracy theory on the Batman universe that Scott hated Alfred. And so I thought to myself, this is absolutely the thing that he would love to have done, if that's true. If that's true, they did that.
We have enough evidence at this point that he dislikes him at some level.
That's true. I want to ask also something that I've started for my own show that I might start to incorporate over here is whether you had a favorite art, page, or panel in this particular issue.
Ed, you want to go first?
I've caught you off guard.
Yes, you did.
Two things. I really like the Ivy cover to this issue.
Yep.
The standard cover, not the variant one. The only bad part about it was there was no reveal. We knew anyway, but there was no I wonder if Poison Ivy's in this issue.
Yeah.
I wonder why there's green lettering. And I did like the art that was done down in the Batcave when Selena was being aggressive with him.
Sure. Yeah.
That was well drawn, hiding her face in some of the shadows, so you couldn't see what her true thoughts were. I thought that whole sequence in the Batcave was well drawn.
Well, if I had to pick something, there'd be a couple. One, I really appreciate the fact of I like the simple dress that Ivy is wearing in the park. It's also at the beginning of the issue. I think that dress it's very different on what they normally portray her in, whether it be the scantily clad bikini made of leaves, or whether it be the skin tight suit that she's worn of leaves. I think it's it's a nice normal costume that doesn't have to be crazy super revealing. I mean, it still has the pattern of leaves, but it's not actually leaves. So I think that's cool. The other one is the page that has all of the different scenes from people all around the world that say I love you too, with the vines basically coming out all over the place. I think that's a cool way to break up a page with the panels. Obviously, the page where she is basically making this massive fortress of vines and things like that, when she simply goes from standing on the bench to the next page where it's all surrounding her, and then she's got her throne. That's pretty cool looking too, because there's a lot of really cool details there. So that would probably be basically anything that has to do with Ivy in general, but I think that's, I mean, obviously that is the focus of this arc, so that would make sense. So.
Mm-hmm. Mikhail Janin, I really like his art. I think perhaps we don't comment on it enough. That's really my fault since I'm leading these discussions. And I think he really makes beautiful women, and I guess I've not really commented on Catwoman, but I think always, Catwoman is pretty attractive, but his Ivy is like drop dead gorgeous. I mean, I'm looking at page 11, which is just like the full page of just her face with the leaves around and her hair everywhere, basically. And it's really beautiful. It is a really beautiful portrait of Poison Ivy. So I think that's certainly one of my favorite. I also agree that I like that simple little dress. She looks so innocent despite the chaos that she's actually going through. And I think, towards the end when you get to that splash, I guess it'd be 17 and 18 of all the greenery and her sort of in the center on a throne of her own making. I think there's some wonderful stuff that's being done. So final question, and this actually is probably the most important question, but I think perhaps when this was coming out, before maybe the solicitations, I don't know what it was, people were a little up in arms about Ivy and sort of her character being changed. And one could see that, especially when, you go over to Batgirl, I think it was 19, where Barbara Gordon brings Ivy a nice little sandwich and she reflects on rehabilitating her, and Ivy helped out in Trinity. I remember she helped out the, Superman, Batwoman, and Wonder Woman, and here we have her taking over, I think she says 7.6 billion people. We don't know what she's going to do, but basically she threatens violence. So what do you think do you have a dog in the race about what type of character Ivy is? Do you agree with the people that were pretty upset with it? What are your thoughts on this particular characterization of Ivy, and are you okay with it, even given how she's been characterized leading up to this?
So I think overall, here's the thing. Poison Ivy originally, when she was created, was a straight villain. That's how she was written. I think that in the 90s, we had a lot of characters that basically, they were adjusted. And you see a lot of characters that are suddenly become more anti-heroes, or in the case of Ivy, she's become more of like an eco-terrorist. But even so, an eco-terrorist is not necessarily always a bad thing. She's standing up for something. She's trying to protect something. It just doesn't always fall in line with the way the world is. So she becomes more of like, she has a reason to do what she's doing. Not to say that some other characters don't, but when you compare her to somebody like Scarecrow, who just wants to make everybody scared, or you do somebody like the Joker, where his entire thing is creating chaos and anarchy to a degree. I mean, there's a difference there. So there's like these levels of how bad a villain actually is, starting in the 90s with the way they're writing characters. I think that has changed a lot. So I think prior to Flashpoint, you had Gotham City Sirens, where you see Catwoman, who has clearly been written for a long period of time, including her own solo series, well, 2 solo series, that she is very much an anti-hero, walking that gray line. She will do good, but she can do bad. She won't cross certain lines, but she has no problem crossing other lines, things like that. You have that character. You have Harley Quinn, who has distanced herself from Joker, and even so, when you can look at the character now, I mean, in her own series now, she's always doing some sort of heroic thing, but she has no problem crossing certain lines. That character, along with Catwoman, along with Poison Ivy in Gotham City Sirens, was portrayed in that we are anti-heroes, but we're not afraid to cross certain lines. And I think a lot of people who look at that characterization of Ivy see that that's the way she's supposed to be. So I think when originally the solicitation came out for this series, or for this issue, I think a lot of people were like, oh crap, she's going back to her straight villainous ways. This is exactly what nobody wants to see. We're all going to get up in arms because of that. And the thing is, I don't know how many times this happens with stuff that Tom King does, whether it be the engagement, whether it be the stuff with Talia, now the stuff with Poison Ivy. It feels like the solicitations are basically written to cause some sort of chaos / people get a bunch of people up in arms, and then guess what? The issue still sells crazy well, and then everybody comes out of it happy. Most of the time. It doesn't happen all the time, but most of the time, a lot of people come out of the issue going, you know what, maybe I should have just waited instead of taking a small paragraph to describe something that's coming out 3 months from now. And I think the thing is that I don't think that this is taking the route of she's straight villain. I think that there's definitely some sort of direction that Tom King is going with this where I don't know exactly, I don't know what it is yet, but I definitely feel as if he's not going the route of just making her a straight villain. He's hinting at this idea that she has the capabilities of doing something, but is she actually going to do it? And I think that's what it is. I just don't know how it's all going to tie into whatever Tom King's trying to tell us about Selena and Bruce's relationship this month, because it seems like every month he's trying to tell us something different about the relationship. So do I have an issue with the way she's portrayed here? No, because like I said when the solicitation came out, this is a wait and see game. And I mean, with Tom King, you can't just read one issue, or you can't just read a solicitation and say, oh God, he's going to screw it up. Because, I mean, we were literally doing this a month ago with Wonder Woman. I was saying the exact same thing. And I was saying the exact same thing about, well, let's just wait and see what happens in the next issue, because we don't know that they're actually going to kiss, that Bruce is going to be cheating on Catwoman. We're just jumping to conclusions, which is what Tom King has been doing for months. All he does is lead us to believe one thing is going to happen, and then something else completely different happens. So I think at this point, wait and see. But the way it's being portrayed, I don't have a major issue with it at this point.
I don't have a major issue with portrayal, but what I do have a bit of an issue, let me get my soapbox out so I can jump up on top of it real fast.
Oh, thank you.
Is just give me some consistency. Like, Poison Ivy can't go from being villain to hero to villain to hero to villain to hero to villain to hero. You know, just like pick one. I don't particularly care what it is. I mean, Ivy's a cool character. I like Ivy, but I'm not like emotionally attached to her. If they want to make her a villain, make her a villain. If they want to make a hero, make her a hero. And leave her that way for like, I don't know, a week or two. Like,
no, I think what you mean to say is a couple of years or two. Because the problem is she is written one specific way for a short amount of time or for a specific arc. But yes, it does change very frequently.
This doesn't seem like think about it. We have All-Star Batman Ivy, right? We have this version of Ivy. We had Ivy who joined Birds of Prey in New 52, only later to be revealed as a hero pretending to be a villain, but then was quickly rewrote in the Batman stuff as actually this nice girl who made gardens for people in the poor areas of the, like, just pick one. They do this with Harley Quinn too.
Yep, they do.
Like, we don't forget that there was a Harley Quinn Villains Month special where she killed like 150 kids. Remember? Like, she gave them all video game consoles and then blew them up. And then within a year, she is like our friendly anti-hero. So I don't even particularly care. It's not like Catwoman, who I think is... Catwoman's never been a kill character. She's never run around committing homicide. You know?
Except that one time that Tom King hinted that she did, and everyone was like, oh my God, Tom King, you're so horrible.
But she didn't, and I don't know what Tom King's going to do with this, so I'm not even going to judge it on this one. I'm just saying, in the writer's room at DC, like, if we're going to make Ivy a villain, or Harley Quinn a villain, or a hero, because now apparently Harley Quinn's going to be in the Justice League, like...
Well, Huntress was in the Justice League, so can't really judge.
Oh, yes, we can.
Okay.
I beg to differ. I just wish they... And only have them change allegiances to the light or the dark side, however you want to look at it, when something, like, happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, make it a big deal. Like, if you told me, like, if Ivy had been a villain for 5 years or whatever, and something happened, she witnessed something, and she had this life-changing event, and she decided to change her life, I can get down with that as part of the story. But just, like, every time I see her or Harley, or you got to go, ooh, is this the good one or the bad one? I just wish we kind of stopped that.
Yeah. Consistency is what's important.
Please. Yes.
What was that story where Ivy had control of Clayface for a while?
Oh, Detective. I don't remember what the name of the
Detective
story
Comics. It was a while
Was a
back.
detective. That's interesting. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I guess that was New 52 as well. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you about consistency. I think another one of the things that people were talking about is she was never an out-and-out murderer.
was. Recently.
I'm not recent, yeah. And I don't know. We don't really know what her plans are yet. It just seems like she's got a Ra's al Ghul sort of complex going on right now, where she can control everyone and she's trying to make the world a better place. I don't think she's gonna have them commit mass suicide, but we can only see. I guess I'll listen to Dustin for once in my life and wait and see, do a wait and see situation. But I do really like Ivy. As I've said before on this show, I've come to potentially think that Ivy might be my favorite rogue in Batman's gallery. And she intrigues me, and it's not, I mean, she could be a villain, she could be an anti-hero. It's more of sort of her journey and seeing what she gets up to and things like that. But it would be nice to have the same Ivy doing the same sorts of things, or like a same line of consistency for a good while, rather than it be different things in different books. That's what we never like to see. I mean, that just gets down to continuity. So yeah, I mean, we don't really know right now what she's about to do, but I do I don't know. I mean, she was just good recently. So this is why it bothers me, because, you go over to Trinity, or even more recently to Batgirl, and she's on the up and up for the most part. I don't expect her to be like completely goody two-shoes like Barbara Gordon. I think there will always be moments where someone will have to call her back from the ledge and, don't cross that line. But I think that's who Ivy should be. I think she's got her own agenda, but she can help people out, but she's not going to completely destroy it. And maybe this is her own agenda. She said the green is a big thing for her, so depending on what her motivation is, it could make sense how she's acting. So I guess all of us really just agree on consistency and wait and see. And those are the only things I have to ask for this issue.
All right, so Batman, I'm going to give a total of 3.5 out of 5.
3 out of 5? It's fine.
I'll say a 3.5 out of 5 as well.
And over on the website, Corbin gave it 3 out of 5, so it's going to give Batman number 41 a total of 3 out of 5 Batarangs. Let's move into our next book, Detective Comics. Detective Comics number 975, written by James Tynion IV, art by Alvaro Martinez. Many years ago, at the funeral of Gabby and Beth Kane, young Bruce Wayne comforts his cousin Kate. He tells her that it never stops hurting, recalling the scene where a young Kate tried to comfort him at his own mother and father's funeral. Bruce tells her of a dream he has, of killing the man who killed Thomas and Martha, and then Kate states, with a dark fury in her eyes, that they should find and kill all the people who hurt them. Now, Kate lies alone in bed, sleepless, thinking of Cass's face as she held the dying Clayface. She receives a call reminding her of a date. Nightwing drops in on Batgirl in Burnside's clock tower, her personal base. Babs is studying the events of the past week, culminating in Clayface's death, while Dick says he plans to follow his heart. With an eye roll, Babs gives Nightwing a ride to Wayne Manor. Cassandra Cain looks out of Damian Wayne's window, prompting the current Robin to snobbily order her from his space. In response, she tosses him to the ground, and an amused Tim Drake helps his fellow Robin up. Alfred collects Cass, telling her of his plans to make cookies and watch the ballet as the rest of the boys head down to the Batcave. Dick throws an arm over Tim's shoulder and invites him to Bloodhaven, while Babs gives him the big sister, "I'm worried about you because you just returned from the dead" talk. Jason is already there, surprising the rest of the family, considering the question of Kate killing hits fairly close to Jason's philosophical and practical home. However, Bruce says he wants to hear from everyone, and they all gather around a table to begin the trial. Meanwhile, Kate is taking on a submachine gun wielding gang of sentient apes, while Luke Fox, Batwing, asks her what she intends to do about her father's offer to lead the colony. She says she's considering it, and Luke says he and Azrael are with her, though he warns caution. In the cave, Tim starts the conversation. He gives a brief history of his time as Robin and Red Robin, and makes the case that Batwoman's choice was cynical, not idealistic, and goes against what Batman and his allies stand for, hope and justice, not vengeance and punishment. Dick follows, saying he believes the best of everyone in the situation and grieves at the outcome. His own position is that Kate can come back, but she has to earn it. Damien only offers his arrogant opinion that none of them should be part of the family. Jason then gives his opinion that Batman's anger stems from a bruised ego rather than principle and votes that she stays. Lastly, Barbara makes her case that the Belfry was Batman's way to try to convince Kate to stay on his side instead of the colony's. She accuses Batman of allowing Tim to set up the Gotham Knights when he knew it was an unstable situation that could not last. Tim tries to insist that it could work, but Babs says based on her research and conversations with Spoiler, the team hasn't helped its members as much as it should have. She brings up Cassandra's isolation and ends by saying that Batman fears that Kate is right and he is wrong, that only Kate Kane can make the decision of whether she remains a Bat or not. In the cemetery, Kate is visiting her mother on the anniversary of her death. She pours out her heart about the regret over hurting Cassandra when all she wanted to do was save lives, particularly Cassandra's own life. Her father arrives and Kate tells him that she's all in. The colony helicarrier and helicopters uncloak above them as Jake says, "Then let's get started." Okay, so after a rough issue in the last episode, we have this issue which basically incorporates a lot of members of the Bat family which haven't appeared very much. One I want to specifically single out is Batgirl. Batgirl here seems to be the voice of reasoning, and this is what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about how she stands up to Batman and comes across as more of an equal and less of a sidekick. Not that she is a sidekick, I want to make that clear, but that her opinion is just as important as Batman's as anybody else's. I like the way this is portrayed. I mean, obviously Damian comes across as a little immature, but that's Damian. I mean, he is immature. But the things that she says, the fact that she says, my analysis of the situation, my understanding of everything that's going on based off my own research, this is what I've come to terms with, and this is what I believe. This is the way that Batgirl should be written, and puts her more on the track of being the more. And I say this lightly because I don't like what this implies, and I'll get to that in a second. It shows that she's more of like the mother of the group. Batwoman, yes, is an older female in the group, and when I say it, I don't want to say this lightly. I don't like the idea of what saying she takes the motherly role implies that she is an older female, because I don't know. I had this conversation on Twitter with a bunch of different people. I think Batgirl here is written as a straight adult, not a teenager with teenager problems, as we've seen in the Batgirl of Burnside run, the Hope Larson run. This is not Batgirl who has teenage issues, who's dating a new guy every 6 issues. This is Batgirl who is an analytical genius. And that's the thing. Like, she is very smart. She's always been a very smart and intelligent character, but this is showing that she uses her research, she uses her analysis to come up with very, very deductive reasoning, and that's what I think is important for her character. She's not an angsty teenager who has teenager issues, who has boy issues. That's not to say she can't have relationships and things like that, but the way she's written here is probably the best way this character has been written in a long time, in my opinion. That being said, I like the fact that everyone is looking at her and saying, like, Tim argues with her, because I think Tim intelligently is very on the same level as Batgirl, in my opinion. I think that they are both very, very smart characters, and he's going to have a massive debate with her because he believes what he was doing was right, while everyone else just listens and really truly believes what she's saying is very important. And I think that is a very important thing. So I guess the question and I know this is not really a question, it's just me talking about how I enjoyed how Batgirl was written. This is what I would love to see, and this also led to a discussion on Twitter about how we'd love to see James Tynion write Batgirl, and honestly I just don't see that happening. Not that Tynion, I don't know that he would not want to write Batgirl by any means, but it feels like Batgirl, and no offense to this Batgirl series or the character, it's not on the same level as what he's currently working on. I mean, Detective Comics sells more than twice as many copies as what Batgirl sells right now, and he's going to be on this massive event with No Justice and doing whatever's there. So he's not going to be writing Batgirl anytime soon. That being said, how do you feel this version of Batgirl is portrayed compared to what we've seen over the past, let's say, 3 years?
This, to me, is Tynion writing Batgirl from pre-New 52. This is more like Oracle than Batgirl.
Exactly.
Like pre-New 52, or, you know what I'm saying? Smart, concise, knows what's going on. I don't dislike this. It's just not in character with what we currently have, kind of going back to the consistency argument we just had, right? I prefer this type of Batgirl, but it's not currently the Batgirl we have. So
I think that's partially true. I think when you look at the Batgirl series, yes, this is not in line at all with what we see in Batgirl series. But I think this is in line with what the Bensons have been trying to get to in Birds of Prey. I think they've been really trying to get to this character, but they just haven't gotten there yet. Maybe by May they will have gotten to this point, but yeah, I definitely agree. The consistency between what we haven't shown in like the Burnside Batgirl and Hope Larson's Batgirl, and even in the beginning of the Birds of Prey run, is not this Batgirl.
Number one, I don't want James Tynion IV to write a Batgirl title. No offense to him, but we need to get out of the trend of male writers writing female characters. We need to have more consistency and more female creators in general, but also more authenticity of female writers writing female characters. So I don't want that to happen. Also, just because he writes one good representation, please do not forget her representation in, it was one of the Eternals. Not sure which one it was. It was the one with Jason Bard. So was that Batman and Robin Eternal?
It was Batman Eternal. That was where Jason Bard.
Okay. When Jason Todd has to call you off of that ledge, basically, you know that something's gone wrong. So no, I haven't forgotten that.
But in his defense, I will say this. That was very in line with what was happening with the character in the main Batgirl series at the time.
Okay. Secondly, I don't like the term mother figure for her. I don't think that's how she was acting at all. I think if you look back with Oracle and how she was portrayed, especially with the younger heroes like Tim, and especially Cassandra, that's what a mother figure is. I think you have this nurturing quality. You're a mentor. This is not what she's doing here right now. This is tough love. Biblically, I would call it she is a Nathan to David. Nathan was basically the prophet, or the guy who told David, guess what, David, you made a mistake and God's coming after you. So that's absolutely what she's doing. She is holding them accountable for what has happened. I love this though, because I made a joke on my own show because Ian asked me what I thought about this, so I read it in advance so I could talk about it. In the Silver Age, she would have been slapped and then told to shut up. But here we have such a progression for her where she, did it slip anyone's notice that she's the only female at that table? Which is really sad. Cass isn't there for whatever reason. But, she can stand up to them. She cuts through the BS and tells them how it really is. And she knows Batman so much, perhaps better than himself, or at least better than he is willing to admit, that she can cut through everything and basically say, this is the real reason why you had this. It's interesting also that there's a vulnerability to her, or perhaps, I don't know. I think you get a sense of who Barbara Gordon truly is and how she relates herself and her identity to her cowl, because she's the only one to take off her mask. Everyone else has their mask on, with the exception of Jason when he removes his mask and puts it down on the table. So she's not talking as Batgirl, she's talking as Barbara Gordon. Absolutely, she's written well beyond her years. It's very much an older Barbara Gordon. And it's someone that commands respect, and she's grown so much. The problem is, of course, the consistency, because she's not really there, in other books, unfortunately. She's making those mistakes. Wait, did I answer all those questions?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
So I've got two more things. The first one is we see a lot of characters, like I said, that we don't normally see. We see Nightwing, We see Damian, Batgirl's here, Jason's here. I mean, a lot of these characters who Batman is considering the inner sanctum of the Bat family, because as Stella pointed out, Cassandra's not here, and there's obviously other characters like Stephanie, for example, or even Luke Fox and Azrael, who are not involved in this trial per se. They're not involved, even though they've been allies of Batman and things like that. So it clearly is just the inner sanctum of the team, which is basically Batman, anybody who previously was Robin, and then Batgirl. That's basically the inner sanctum at this point. I think it's interesting to specifically have these. I wanted to hear your guys' opinion, and if you thought the characterization of anybody here was out of place. Did you guys think that anybody, the way they were portrayed in their decision-making process, was outside of the way you would expect them to have voted?
You mean outside of Barbara?
Current Barbara.
Well, I don't disagree with Barbara, so I mean, I guess you could, yes.
Voted. Okay, I was like, how do you make characterization overall? It's funny because we just talked about Damian, and I thought he came off as his lack of a vote kind of just aggravated me.
Well, it's hard for some of them to even vote because, I mean, Jason, of all people, and Damian, like, they both have a kill count. So it's hard, for some of them, for me to even believe that they should be on this council. But sorry to interrupt you.
No, I agree. And I thought it was an interesting argument they made with Jason, which was Jason was like, I got no problem with dropping bodies off all over the city.
Right.
But she didn't follow orders.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, listen, I love Jason as a character. He's probably my favorite Robin. But, he does not notorious for following rules or obeying orders.
Well, they're just trying to portray the characters the way they're currently being done in Rebirth, though, because Jason has been portrayed as he was making it seem like he was killing people, but then he was actually not killing them, showing Batman that he could take orders, and then Batman said, okay, I sanction your team to go do what you need to do, just be aware that I'll be watching you. And so, the way the character, he's not killing people right now, so the way they're portraying it is, yes, he has killed people, but this is... I mean, I get what he's saying about he didn't follow orders.
Killing people.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, Damian's not currently killing people either, but he clearly has killed people too.
Which is funny because you have a council like Stella's talking about that. Why are these people getting to vote on it? Like, Jason's killed people, Damian's killed people, and they're going to decide that because Kate killed Clayface. I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't know. The whole thing seems honestly kind of contrived.
Well, the thing is, I guess it's the way you look at it, because I think the thing is, you guys are looking at it from the perspective of why should these people be on it if they've killed people in the past, when the council that exists here is existing because they are basically members of the Bat family, that Batman respects their opinions and has been with them long enough where he trusts their judgment regardless of what it may be. Obviously, people who have previously killed are going to not necessarily have a major issue with someone killing somebody. I think that's the point that they're trying to make here. I think the thing is that's why they're on the council, is because Batman trusts their judgment. That's why they're there. It has nothing to do with whether or not they have or have not killed people, because if we went the route of including nobody who's killed anybody, and you're looking at the entire history of the character, there's not a whole lot of characters you could include on this team. I mean... Yeah,
but I mean, I don't know. Besides Tim, like Stella said, Cass isn't even here. The people that were actually involved in the events, the people that were I like seeing this group of people together. This is my favorite version of the Bat family, is this core version. But Cass, who was involved in the fight, who was there with Clayface when he died and was arguably his closest friend. Azrael, even, who I dislike passionately, but Batwing, Stephanie, the people that were involved in this group, he doesn't even bring the actual. This would be like if Aquaman killed someone in the Justice League and they went to the Teen Titans and asked him to decide his fate. The team that was involved in the fight should be the ones talking about it, not okay, you kids go away and I'm bringing the A-team now. I don't know. I don't think this is the right group to be deciding his fate. I just don't.
I agree with you, Ed. That was actually my greatest problem. Frankly, I don't really like this whole thing where we're continuing with just Oh my gosh. I mean, Kate Kane on trial? What is this? But, this is absolutely, when we start off with Batgirl, I was scratching my head thinking, why on earth is she? There's no point in having her here. But I'm glad that she at least points out she's almost like a reader poking her head through, because she talks about all of this. Why are we here? And then, it's not what does it say? It's not a Bruce idea, it's a Tim idea, that sort of thing. But yeah, I agree with you. I think people who had no idea. Now, the devil's advocate is that perhaps Bruce wants people that are sort of distanced from the event to give like a clear, unbiased opinion on what's happening or what had gone down. But then I do wonder about Tim and everything. I think their decisions are pretty in line, I guess, with what they have to say. I mean, Nightwing, ever the optimist, I think has the best thing to say, that, she made a mistake, but there's obviously a point open for them. I think you can't close Kate Kane off. I think the point that, Ed and I bringing up these killers is that it doesn't matter if they're not currently killing. The fact is that they've killed in the past. And so, this could very well be, even though she was in the military, one of the first things that Kate had done that really was egregious. And yes, you could go for the she didn't follow orders, but give me a break. How many times did Tim Drake not follow Batman's orders when Batman told him to, not follow him or not, A weird thing for me, speaking of out of character, is Tim's little thing. Frankly, Tim is starting to get on my nerves in this Detective Comics. I know that people love Tim, but he's starting to get on my nerves. He says that, let's see here, I think I come from a slightly different place than the rest of you. Tragedy didn't really have a hand in making me put on the costume. So I'm thinking to myself, Barbara Gordon, has both of her parents. Then Tom Panarese brought up the fact that, now I don't know if this is in continuity anymore, if we're still going with the wit sack, but Tim's mother was killed by the Obeah Man, and that was sort of, paralyzed his father. So there was a hint, a sniff of some tragedy in his backstory. So I'm not really sure why he would bring that up, what that even has to do with anything. But he's starting to get on my nerves. So everyone's voting is fine. It's just the big question of why they're even there doing it. It's just contrived is absolutely the right word. Putting her on trial seems really overly dramatic. This is getting out of hand, and it needs to end. Maybe that's why James Tynion is off this title, because of this stuff that's happening. I'm so sorry. I'm actually a little upset with this right now. Yeah.
Well, okay. So as Stella said, the devil's advocate, I guess that makes me the devil here.
Here we
wow.
go. Can't wait.
So yeah, I'm going to say this. It may be called the trial of Batwoman, but let's be honest here. They're not saying she's going to go, they're going to lock her up, or they're going to turn her in, or she's going to get the death penalty. Let's be honest here. They're just making a point of whether or not she should be included on the team. And let's not forget that up until this Gotham Knights storyline, she wasn't part of the team, and she wasn't really involved in anything going on in the Bat family. So the whole idea is that they created this Gotham Knights team, and as Batgirl points out, he created this team with the hope that she could be involved with the family so that she wouldn't be doing her own thing that would go against what Batman was deciding. She had nothing to do with the Bat family other than just the rare random popping up in somebody else's series prior to this. So this was the way that she was brought in. The question is, does she belong on the team if she doesn't want to follow the main points that Batman is trying to do? I think you guys are looking at this from a crazy perspective, this is a trial and she's straight guilty of this, and we're gonna hang her in the back room.
Are you kidding?
It's called the trial of Batwoman.
It's called the trial of Batwoman because there's a council of people deciding her fate on whether or not she stays on the team. It has nothing to do with whether or not she's going to get killed or not.
We haven't brought that up at all. You're going way off, sir. You are putting words in our mouths.
The punishment doesn't affect it if it's a trial or not. If I go to trial for a speeding ticket, they're not going to kill me.
But what is the punishment exactly? This is the thing I feel like you guys are getting hung up on, is the fact that there's a punishment. She's either on the team or she's not on the team. Why wouldn't a group of people who are part of the team decide whether or not she remains part of the team or whether she has to go out on her own? I don't understand what the issue is here. The question is whether or not she belongs on the team. Whether or not that is defined as a punishment or not, I guess it depends on who you're asking. Because there's people on this in this group of people who are basically saying, "Hey, this person does deserve a second chance," like Nightwing says, she needs to earn it, but she deserves a second chance. You've got other people who are saying she just didn't listen to orders, so she doesn't belong on the team, like Tim Drake saying. You've got other people who are saying she might have killed somebody, but that's not necessarily the end-all, be-all of the situation. It's more about whether or not she followed your orders, which she went against, so that doesn't mean she gets kicked off the team. I think that this is a perfect group of people. If you bring Cass into the situation, what is Cass going to do? She's going to say that she doesn't belong on the team, because we already saw in the last issue, she ripped the bat off her chest and said, "You don't belong on the team because you don't respect the bat." She did this in the last issue. Spoiler's not going to be on the team because Spoiler left the team. She's not going to be around making a judgment on whether or not she stays part of the team because she's not around. Meanwhile, Azrael and Luke already sided with Batwoman, so there's no reason to involve any of those other characters on in this situation. Not that I believe that any of them belong in this situation of deciding the fate of whether or not she stays part of the Bat family or not. The reality of it is, in my personal opinion, this is a perfect group of characters to decide whether or not she belongs part of the Bat family or even is linked to the Bat family by having that bat on her chest. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. If she's going to walk around with the bat on her chest, she has to uphold a certain group of ideals that the rest of the Bat family agrees with. This group of people, whether you agree that every single person on the team is follows these to the T every single time they go out or not, they all have a specific group of ideals that they uphold to based off of something that Batman came up with. I'm pretty sure in this situation I sound like Tim Drake, but I'm just saying that I think that is the whole reason behind this, and that's why this is happening. To say that certain members of the Bat family are not being included, and because this is the only group of characters that is, and that makes the trial not necessary, I don't agree with that. I think this is something. Is it completely necessary for them to determine? No, because Batman could just say, "Well, I see it this way. This is how it's going to be." But that wouldn't. I don't think that anybody's going to like that decision. So involving the characters that we don't necessarily see and aren't involved in the situation every single issue, series, month, things like that, it makes perfect sense to me. I know I disagree. It's a disagreement with you guys, but that's just where I stand.
I think there's a fatal flaw with your talking is you keep saying team, but I see two different teams here. I see the core Bat family that we have here, and then I have the Detective Comics team.
Agreed.
So part of which is she a member?
She's part of the Gotham Knights, which was the group that was amongst the...
Then these are not the Gotham Knights. There are 4 people at this table who are not on that team, and they do not need to be there if she's a part of that team.
But if the Gotham Knights team has already disbanded, then what other team would she be part of?
The team hasn't disbanded.
Who's left besides Tim and Cass?
Azrael and Batwing were just talking.
Sided with Kate and said, "We're with Kate."
Yeah, but that's the point. They're part of the team. They should have their say. And Cass should have been able to talk as Clayface died, as she was Basil's closest friend. Where's the victim's advocate here? This whole thing is just stupid. like this whole courtroom is the dumbest thing. When was the last time Damian and Kate were in the same issue of a comic book?
That's why Damian doesn't have a real decision in the process, and he says he has some stupid, immature response. He doesn't actually say whether or not she belongs on the team or not, because he says that nobody belongs on the team. So using that as a point doesn't make any sense.
Batman selected a guy who doesn't even know her, who's a teenager, to try put her fate on a team that he's not on. It's just, I don't know. I mean, obviously we disagree, which is fine.
The thing is, the Gotham Knights are done. I don't see them coming back. Even if this entire situation went in the direction where, yes, Kate can still be part of the group, that all of these people that you guys are saying don't make any sense to vote on whether or not she's part of the group. My thing is, she wasn't part of either one of the groups before she was on the Gotham Knights. She was not part of the Bat family other than she wore that bat and she operated in Gotham City. She was not part of the Bat family. I think going back years ago, even when Batman Eternal started up and they were using Batwoman in the pages of Batman Eternal, it didn't make any sense because she wasn't falling in line with anything else going on in her own series at the time or anywhere else. She wasn't involved with the Bat family, so including her, and at the time I believe we all agreed that it was really stupid that she was being included in something that she had no part of, even if they were trying to build her up. This entire time, she's never been part of the Bat family.
So should they have the Bat family judge her then?
Yeah, I don't know what your connection is. What does it
You're
matter?
making
if
an
she's
argument
not?
for it. So you're right.
Yeah,
she's
I was
not part
trying
of the
to
Bat
connect your thinking. Please connect her not being a part to this.
Batman brought her into the Bat family by bringing her into the Gotham Knights. She made this decision to kill Clayface. His decision to figure out whether or not to keep her around the Bat family / the Gotham Knights in general, or the association with the Bat symbol on her chest, or the Bat family by that association, he has decided to have the Bat family as a group, not the Gotham Knights that she was part of, but the Bat family who's been established for much longer than most of the other people who you guys are saying should be involved in this decision-making process, having them decide whether or not she belongs associated with the Bat family.
Huh?
Man. I just think that you've got some fallacies in your logic is all. I don't know, man. I don't know if this is going to get solved. This is kind of exciting.
We
though,
just disagree on this one. Yeah,
I think this is the most we've ever argued, which is kind of fun. But yeah, just not there with you, sir.
Yeah, because when I read this, I'm like, what are these guys even doing here?
Yeah.
It just, that's okay. That's what makes good entertainment.
Highest rated show ever.
Yeah. We're just like, wow, I don't get it.
All right, so moving on. Detective Comics number 975 gets a total of 4 out of 5 batarangs from me. What do you guys give it?
Oh, man.
2 out of 5.
Yeah, that's a low ball, man. Yeah, the saving grace for me is Batgirl's characterization. I'll agree with that and say a 2 out of 5.
And over on the website, Ian gave it 4.5 out of 5. So that's going to give Detective Comics number 975 a total of 3 out of 5 batarangs. That is all of our in-depth reviews. Let's move over to the website for Greater Gotham. First up, on February 21st, main TBU books, where we talked about Batman number 41, Nightwing number 39. A captured Nightwing remembers the second time he faced off against the Judge while he was off in college. This was reviewed by Paul. He gave it 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
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 Batwoman number 12, the story of Kate's last year on Corena is told. This was reviewed by Tony. He gave it 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
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 Batman and the Signal number 2. The Signal and Detective IC appear to have solved the mystery of the metas, but the person behind it all presents a new challenge. This is by Adele. He gave it 2.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral. Neutral, I guess, yeah.
Abstain.
Batman's Rogues Gallery invades New York City in the absence of Harley, while Killer Croc reclaims what is his. This is by David. He gave it 4.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Secondary TBU books, The Brave and the Bold, Batman and Wonder Woman number 1. Diana and Steve's vacation is interrupted by an unknown guest as Bruce investigates a situation in the Irish quarter of Gotham City. This is reviewed by Tony. He gave it 5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
Thumbs up. The art is fantastic.
Abstain.
Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, number 4. Batman, Robin, and the Turtles regroup after their defeat as Donatello makes a desperate move to defeat Bane. This is reviewed by Paul. He gave it 4 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Batman Sins of the Father number 1, which includes digital chapters number 1 through 2. Based on the Batman Telltale series video game, Batman is winning the trust of Gotham's police force, while Bruce's attempts to make amends for his father's crimes are derailed when a mysterious assassin strikes. This is by Dan. He gave it 4 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Main DC Universe books, Super Sons number 13. Just as John and Damian start to get accustomed to school, Talia al Ghul shows up, demanding Damian join her. After he refuses, Talia goes after someone close to the family. This is by Bill. He gave it 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up.
Neutral.
Thumbs up.
Justice League number 39, the League's public image takes hit after hit as they deal with the continuing crises. This is by Ian. He gave it 2.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
Neutral. Thumbs down.
Abstain.
That's not good. I don't know. I can't decide if it's bad or if about it.
Trinity number 18, the heroes continue their interviews about their latest adventure through Skartaris. This is by Tony. He gave it 3.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
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 Secondary DC Universe books, Bombshells United number 12, which includes digital chapters number 23 through 24. The Bombshell versions of Batwoman, Question, Talia al Ghul, Jason Todd, and Hederick appear in this issue. Damage number 2, the appearance from the Suicide Squad. An appearance from the Suicide Squad includes Deadshot and Harley Quinn. Injustice 2 number 20, which includes digital chapters number 39 through 40. The Injustice versions of Batman, Batgirl, Harley Quinn, Ra's al Ghul, and Joker all appear in the issue. Teen Titans Go number 26, which includes digital chapters number 51 through 52. The Teen Titans Go versions of Robin and Killer Moth appear in the issue. Moving on to February 28th, main TBU books. We already talked about Detective Comics. Batgirl number 20. Batgirl has a run-in with an old flame who is up to no good, as she recalls some of the good and not so good times she has had in Burnside. This is by Jerry. He gave it 3 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
Neutral.
Thumbs up.
Batman Beyond number 17, Stalker's benefactor and a figure from Terry's past are revealed as Batman and Stalker continue to fight. This is by Adele. He gave it 2 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
I'll give it a neutral.
It's no secondary TBU books. Main DC Universe books, Teen Titans number 17. Despite the team's tower being destroyed, many try to move on and look to the future. A disgruntled Beast Boy becomes entangled with a dangerous tech group called the Lost Boys. This is by Bill. He gave it 3 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral.
Abstain.
Neutral.
Justice League of America number 25, Batman, Black Canary, and Dreamslayer travel back to the Microverse to recreate Angor. This was reviewed by Tony. He gave it 3 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs down.
Thumbs down. It's awful.
Abstain.
Suicide Squad number 36, the Suicide Squad returns to Belle Reve to find Hack in control of the prison and thirsty for revenge. This is by Paul. He gave it 2.5 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a neutral. Doom Patrol JLA Special Number 1, Retcon, after failing to sell the Prime Earth, tries to end reality, but alas, the woman saves the day as the Milk Wars event comes to an end. This is by Tony. He gave it 3 out of 5. I'm going to give this one a thumbs down.
Neutral.
Abstain.
And then secondary DC Universe books, Gotham City Garage number 10, which includes digital chapters 19 through 20. The Gotham City Garage versions of Black Canary, Harley Quinn, Ra's al Ghul, The League of Shadows, Jason Todd, Batman, and Alfred all appear in the issue. The Silencer number 2, Talia al Ghul, and Leviathan both appear in the issue. And then finally, TBU trades and hardcovers over the past 2 weeks include Robin Year 1 Deluxe Edition hardcover, Mother Panic Volume 2 Under Her Skin trade paperback, The Joker, an adult coloring book, The New Teen Titans Omnibus Volume 2 New Edition hardcover, Young Justice Book 2 trade paperback, Flashpoint Unwrapped hardcover, The DC Universe by Neil Gaiman trade paperback, Batman Superpowers trade paperback, Justice League Volume 5 Legacy trade paperback, Teen Titans Volume 2 The Rise of Aqualad trade paperback. So that's everything that's released over the past 2 weeks. If you are interested in reading some of those reviews that we mentioned, that we gave thumbs up, thumbs down, neutral ratings to, we have detailed synopses of all of those issues. So if you are unable to pick up those issues, you can definitely check out the detailed reviews of all of those comics over on the website. We have reviews normally posting on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday every single week. Wednesday being all of the Batman specific titles, Thursday being all of the greater Gotham stuff, including like Nightwing, Batgirl, that kind of stuff. And then on Fridays, we have all the greater DC Universe stuff as well. So definitely check out the website for all kinds of reviews every single week, because there's always books releasing. Outside of that, we're going to dive into listener Q&As. We're going to cover Ian and Jessica's on the next episode just because we're running out of time here. But we will be covering Tim Drake fans, so we'll do that one.
cringe at the sound of the shriek. No, please, don't!
There was a time before, a time above. There were perfect things, diamond absolutes. Dick Grayson and Tim Drake were like brothers. Then the New 52 came and screwed everything up. Rebirth is supposed to bring back old relationships, but one of the biggest relationships pre-52 was Tim and Dick as brothers, even after Damian showed up. Other than the Nightwing issue with Tim in it after his quote-unquote death, this has not been addressed, and that, combined with the lack of Tim reacting to Bruce getting married, is the biggest mistake of Rebirth. None of this has to do with your last episode, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Regarding worries, I'm concerned about the end of Tynion's detective run approaching faster than we thought it would be. Adding to this concern is the lack of Tim on any of the Justice League squads. It baffles and infuriates me that the little demon spawn is on a JL team before Dick, Tim, or even Jason. I'm sorry this is a bit rambly, but I need to get these thoughts off my chest. Evan G.
So I definitely agree that there has been a lack of relationship between a lot of the members, the immediate members of the Bat family. Even the relationship between Dick and Damian has only been hinted or talked about a very few amount of times since Rebirth. But in general, there's a lot of characters in the Bat family that seem disconnected. I honestly believe that Batgirl, despite having Nightwing pop up in her own series for an arc, and despite appearing in Detective Comics like this time around, honestly, a lot of the characters popping up in Detective Comics, I feel as if there's a lot of characters that have not had a lot of relationships between them being shown. And I feel like that probably should change. Hopefully that does change with whoever comes on board Detective Comics, if they decide to keep it a team book, maybe focus a little bit more on the core Bat family and build those relationships. A lot of the problem is that it seems like even in Detective Comics, we've had a lot of focus on these massive situations that the team is in where there's not even a whole lot of time for the individual members to have relationships. It was a little bit more relevant or a little bit more prominent in the beginning of the run of Tynion, but I think that now it's become like, what crazy situation is the team going to get in, and just keeps getting crazier and crazier as we go on, and it's just gotten away from just having those personal relationship moments between the characters.
Yeah, and I think that the team got away from the core too much too, to be honest with you. When it first started, you had Spoiler and you had Red Robin, Tim Drake Robin, whatever we're calling him now, and Batwoman, and then the Clayface and Cass. And to me, those are all still kind of B's and A's, with the exception of Clayface, which is just kind of weird. But I think the farther away you got with Azrael and Batwing, and just, yeah, I think having the core characters would be nice again.
I did appreciate the nice little reference in the recent Detective issue to what I feel like was old, like pre-Flashpoint Tim and Nightwing. And I only know this because I've recently read the issue where Nightwing has his arm around Tim and says, when are you going to come to Blue Haven and we can punch people on the top of trains? And like, there literally is an issue where they're blindfolded atop a train and then they have to fight people. And so I thought, how wonderful that is. Then you have to wonder, when Tynion's off the title, are we going to have someone with that amount of Tim and Steph Love and that knowledge base come on it as well? So that's a little disconcerting as well. But I agree, the relationships are one of the reasons why we love this team so much and why they're called a family.
All right, so that is the only comment we're going to get to. I apologize for not getting to those other comments, but truth be told, both of the other comments were more about thoughts on regarding things and not specific questions, but we will get to those questions, I promise, on the next episode. We're trying to keep these episodes under 2 hours, and so that is part of the reason, and honestly, we spent a lot more time on Detective Comics than I probably would have thought, as well as talking about all the stuff having to do with solicitations and stuff that's coming up for the changes and things like that. So with that is everything for this episode. I want to encourage you to head over to the website and leave comments on the podcast post. If you leave comments somewhere else like Twitter or YouTube or anywhere else that we have the podcast listed, I will see those comments and try to port them over to the comment section, but posting them on the actual comment section is the best way to get your questions asked without me potentially missing them. That being said, be sure to head over to the website to check out everything related to movies, TV, merchandise, video games, and of course the comics. Also be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for all the latest news and videos from the Batman universe. We have tons of other podcasts that have released over the past couple weeks. And just a quick plug, it was recently announced that Robin Everyone Loves a Drake is putting together a Lonely Place of Living radio drama. So that's coming out late spring. So be on the lookout for that. We'll have more announcements related to that in the months ahead, but that is something to look forward to that the site is going to be part of. We have new episodes of Bat Fans, Batgirl to Oracle, so definitely check out all the stuff that we have over on the site. Gotham is back, so Gotham Chronicle is back as well, so be sure to head over to the site. I mean, there's literally tons of content. We have some new editorials that are posting up occasionally, so be sure to check out all that stuff. And then on top of that, we have all the news. Outside of that, if you are so inclined to support us through Patreon, we are always looking for new supporters through Patreon. As I asked in the last episode, if anybody has any ideas on different rewards that you'd like to see us do for Patreon, I'm looking at changing the reward tiers in the coming months. Nothing's worked out in stone yet, but if anybody has any suggestions on what you like to see, whether it be maybe a piece of Bat merchandise with the TBU logo or something like that, or whether you have some other ideas, I'm all ears. I want to make the Patreon super positive for people to support us, and then obviously make it worth your time and money as well. So if you are so inclined to even share comments, even if you're not supporting us on Patreon, you can shoot us those comments either on the comments section or email at tbu@thebatmanuniverse.net. Outside of that, that is everything for this episode. This is Dustin.
R.I.P. Kanan. This is Ed.
This is Nora Wexley.
And you have been listening to the Batman vs. Comic Podcast. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.